And I'm like, which way? And then they're like,
Mm.
awkward.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, which way? Because I've lived now so many different so many different experiences based on my physical presentation that a cure either way would set me, I would still have to emotionally adjust again. Like, because that's just the reality of it. It's like, but I wouldn't see it as a cure. And I'm more likely to go towards my vitiligo pigment than back to my birth pigment because of my mental association with changing color over time. I don't want to mess with that. It becomes like my timeline. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to mess with that. That was very hard to go through. And I don't want to retrack it. It's not so much the having an issue being my birth pigment at all. It's like, but the emotional development part, it's like, you know what? I'm so used to it being this way that going back would do more harm now than going forward and just accepting full on vitiligo. Because I probably have like 10% of pigment left. It's just, I'm technically universal, but right now my hands and it's, I don't know. Like I have friends, their hands are already all white, and sometimes I get jealous. But that's one of my pet peeves. I'm like, man, nothing I can do about it because I would choose. It's like if we could choose different place, I would choose different places. Like,
If there was a cure, you're saying that if you were going go back to your birth pigmentation, that you would be afraid that the cure was not really a cure, and you would have to go through your journey all the way over again because your skin color is going to change, and you're going to find out, okay, that wasn't a cure, and here I am
right.
again in the same predicament.
What tends to happen for me, some vitiligo treatments help with they can put people's vitiligo in, I guess, in like a remission type state, but it's autoimmune, which means it's dealing with the body's own self-regulating system. And this is, in my opinion, this is something that scientists are never going to be able to perfect or fully control because it's like the God quality of us existing in the universe. Like, I don't think y'all ever going to be that smart, but keep trying, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the that's just my personal opinion. And if I were to take something that helped me repigment, chances are it would be something that I would have to keep doing. And so that's not a cure. That's a medication. Um if there was and now I would, even if there was a cure that could just fully I could fully repigment and it would be permanent, I wouldn't choose that for myself. I would choose depigment because of the internalization of the vitiligo experience. And it's like, no, because I've practiced so much at being ready for the universal self that I don't have the wherewithal to like undo that. But someone who is newly diagnosed, a shade of them, like, yeah, I'm not saying I don't want a cure, but I'm saying I'm at the point where if it's to repigment, I wouldn't see that as a cure. I would just be like, so why y'all still making the depigment process so hard? Like, getting that prescription is ridiculously hard, and it's not cheap either. Um, so it's it's a toss up with the, I guess, the miracle question, because I don't um even though I've talked about it being the disease, the social aspect of it and the self-care aspect of it is to not see it as a disease. And kind of it sounds contradictory, but to take care of myself, I have to pay attention to the whole self. and not just the what makes me uncomfortable about myself, because we all have aspects of ourselves that we would, well, let me not put everybody in that boat. Somebody somewhere thinks they're completely perfect, and I'm not going to argue with that person.
Is there a difference between saying that vitiligo is a disease versus that it's a condition? Or a birth, or well, you weren't born with it, so it's not a birth defect. Because I had somebody that said to me when I grew up spina bifida is a birth defect. You don't have a birth. God doesn't make defects. God doesn't make defects. As if you were born with a condition. So just like, yeah, she has a point, but I grew up being birth defects, so I don't see it as a problem.
Right. I think that this is where you get into the nuance of language and perspective, because I didn't have vitiligo at birth, but I did have and still do have strabismus. So I have an eye that wanders all around, and it's better when when I have my glasses on, it's not as recognizable. But if it's off, then she does what she wants. And so the word defect, again, I think that's when you come to a cultural understanding about what health is in a certain culture. Because if a baby is born, how are they not perfect? No matter what condition they're born in. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So from a spiritual perspective, it's like, no, my baby's my baby. But from a medical side, I use disease intentionally when I'm speaking in a medical environment. I use disease specifically when I mean when I mean condition in a medical way. So if I'm talking about my vitiligo as a disease, that's a perspective because it is a disease. But when I'm talking about it as a condition, I'm talking about it from a self-affirming social interaction. So those perspectives it's important to understand that nuance in the language, because you can say disease and condition in one sentence because you're highlighting two different perspectives. And it's important. Your question is very important, because from a medical standpoint, if there's no disease, they don't have a job. Like, and unfortunately, we live in a society that's profit driven, and so you have to get funding to do things, and so you have to pump up why it's a disease, why it's not hurting. I don't like going outside. I have to take my dog everywhere with me because I have social anxiety. And, some days I have to just sit in the car because I don't feel like going out anywhere. And the closest, I only made it to the car, but I made it to the car. So it's like, yeah, but we're not going anywhere. No, we're not. So it plays off of the more diseased, that not being comfortable part of the condition. And then the coping skill, though, is like when I say the disease part of the condition, that's what I mean, because it's chronic. It is, for me, it's chronic. I'm always losing pigment and always regaining pigment at the same time. And so it becomes it's alive in itself. So that that's what a condition is, like a certain type of environment. It's got a rhythm, it's got a cause and effect in it. And so I don't think using either term is wrong. I think that it's paying attention to various perspectives of the person's lived experience. You're living with it, so it is a condition, but you're living with it also because it's a disease, or it's something that you were born with, which is just you, authentically you. But I guess because we operate with a language that compares thing, compare a comparative language versus a language that um, doesn't compare things. We have an idealistic language. It's an idealistic culture. There's generally one way something is supposed to be, and so that's why you get um, birth defect and disease and condition. We're actually having a cultural conversation about language, and so I hope I answered the question. I know
Yeah,
I made it complex,
no,
but
no, no, you made it make sense. You made it
like,
make sense.
like if I knew, well, I'm learning other languages,
Mhm.
but I don't know them to the extent that I know English. But every culture doesn't have the same approach to medicine and wellness and health and their ideas on humanity. So in other languages, um, you might find a different way of seeing your disease condition, birth defect. Um, I could do a quick one.
Mhm.
Is I know in the Yoruba Ifa Orisha tradition, the first Orisha, who is, we're going to make it simple and just say he's a spirit energy. Obatala is the Orisha over anyone that was born with a birth defect. So they automatically are children of Obatala. And that learning that like was a healing moment for me, because they have a saying that Obatala marks his children. And so there's a belief that the spirit in this child has come to teach us something. And that is why they have what they have, or came the way that they came. And so there's this extra thin idea of, oh, this is someone we need to listen to more, versus, this is someone that is someone we need to distance ourselves from, because been born with the unique qualities. And so in the Yoruba Ifa faith, albinism um, is a part of that as well. So albinos are children of Obatala, and so you'll often see them dressed in all white on the continent, and that means either two things: one, they're a child of Obatala, or two, they just hot. But
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
um, and the sun is rough for not when you don't have skin pigment. So
Okay.
it's a rough world out there. I'm always sunburned somewhere. I've got sunburn through my clothes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy. Oh man, this is a sidebar, but I had this one shirt I had to throw it away because no, I learned in a certain light it became sheer, and because I'm not black anymore, like I was like, wait a second, and it was just a black shirt, but now, and I was wearing it to church.
Uh-oh.
Oh, these are my life stories. Like I was wearing to church, and I was walking into the I was greeted by a greeter who was very excited to meet me, to greet me, and I was just like, okay, that's weird. And then I went to the ladies' room. I was like, oh my god. I just flashed the greeter. So yeah. So,
That's why they was excited.
that's
Were
hilarious.
they a man?
Yeah.
That's why. That's why they was excited.
He sure is happy to shake my hand. Oh my goodness. So yeah, life of Legos. If the retrospect, when it gets funny, I'm excited because that means
Yeah.
I've processed it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
What
So
are people's misconceptions about living with vitiligo that you have come across or heard?
one of the most common ones is people think that you've been burned. And so and that is just they're looking for a quick association to move past what they're seeing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's human nature. But no, we're not burned. We're sunburned, but we're not burned like in a fire. um, and I think the hardest part is I think it's the level of empathy of people where yes, it is a skin disease. No, that doesn't make it less than other diseases. But also, I'm not in a competition with diseases. Like, it's not, this isn't a disease competition. But the way that sometimes we engage with people, it's like, well, at least it's not cancer. It's like it's vitiligo. True fact, it's actually the opposite of melanoma. People who have vitiligo can't get melanoma because they don't have melanin. So there's that. And they just recently came to that conclusion within like the past 10 years. So the first 10 years I was growing up, they were like, oh, be careful, wear sunblock because you'll get melanoma. Then they're like, then we realize you don't have melanin, so you can't get melanoma. And that's when I learned to stop just listening to doctors and also think for yourself. Because I'm like, yeah, I could have deduced that if I really wanted to, but I was just listening to doctors. And I'm not hating on doctors, but we have our own role in our health and wellness. And I'm continually learning just how important it is um, to stand in that role and to build a health and wellness team, primary care doctor, psychiatrist, therapists, pharmacists, people that can talk to each other interchangeably for you as you're advocating for yourself. And if somebody can't do that, to find some, keep going through them till you find people that can, is very annoying, but that's what it takes to be healthy. So that's a sidebar for people. No, they need to find another dermatologist, but don't feel like it. Yeah, I'm in that boat too. But
What do you want people to know and understand about living life with vitiligo?
um, I want people to know that it's really hard because it's like two different cliches that are coming to my mind. But I think what I don't hear enough, I want people to know that we are all one species. We are the human race. We come in a plethora of melanated to non-melanated, and that's just fact. Period. So our emotions are what help us navigate our humanity and navigate our health, navigate our wellness. And when we experience disease, that is also a part of the human experience. And so we need to learn to have more empathy for ourselves as human beings to navigate those the differences that naturally show up in us as a species, and not eliminate people because they're different. For people that want to research things. Okay. That's really it.
How does Kelley Ivy want to change the perception of vitiligo, and how are you doing that, and how are you helping in the community?
Me, I really am just doing my best to be my authentic self and to find things that help me, and then share what has helped me with someone else, and understand and point out it what helped me may not help you, but this is what and how I've learned to navigate it for myself, and then to encourage people to be curious about their own whatever it is that they're navigating health wise. Become curious about it, try to befriend it, and help, because that will help you learn how to navigate it. And if it's something that can be cured or put in remission, that's super great. That's basically, yeah, for vitiligo. Um, yeah, like I think that's it. It's kind of like a universal message in that sense. Because we live in a society that really likes to break things apart for profit. And the human spirit isn't one of those things that should be broken apart. So we need to respect everyone's full humanity. How they show up in the world is how they show up. You see what you're seeing, believe what you're seeing. And if what you're seeing makes you uncomfortable, learn, become curious, learn how to navigate your own emotions so that you can be comfortable with as many human beings as you see in the world, because there's a lot of curious things that we have as human beings. Curious diseases, curious ways of being as human beings.
Last question.
Yay!
Is there anything that you want to share, anything that you want to say that my questions did not prompt you to say or share?
I wanted to share two of my favorite tools.
Oh,
So these are my vitiligo Barbies.
okay.
And yes, you can buy them. They came out, I think probably 7 years ago, maybe, something like that. I think she's newer, but there's also a Ken doll, but he's way over. He's still in his plastic, but that's a whole nother thing. I have several of these, but these are the ones that I take. I will be starting again. I tend to substitute teach, and so these are two of my learning tools to take to kids and adults. They're good for both, and but also for me, because then we can have conversations. Why are we feeling this way? Yeah. So I just wanted to share those, that they're out there. If you want to gift them to children, because I'm very gender neutral when it comes to toys. It's a great learning tool for them to just see someone with a different presentation. And as we're becoming more comfortable with the different ways that human beings come into the world or develop in the world, then we'll become a healthier species. And so hopefully that's what it's all about. Um, uh, Being a speciesman in that sense. And mental health is mental wealth. So learning how to navigate depression, anxiety, social what's the other word? I'm thinking of all of my diagnoses that I've had over the years. Agoraphobia, um, is essential to claiming your full life. I think in the research, one of the things that stood out to me when I really started to research vitiligo for myself in my early 20s was there's this phrase quality of life. And in research, vitiligo people tend to have a lesser quality of life. And so my desire is to help improve vitiligo people's quality of life. And that was one of my inner things. Like, I'm not going to have a lesser quality of life just because I have vitiligo. But in believing that, it's something that I have to work and continue to work at because it's, um, I think any chronic disease it's work. It's a full-time job. It's a full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we live in a society that doesn't understand that. So it doesn't want to pay for those things. So
Sorry, I lied. I got another question. What is in the future? What's next for Kelley?
oh, okay. Well,
And as you helping in changing and helping people live life with vitiligo.
okay. So I guess thank you for these questions because they're helping me understand me where I've grown and where I have more understanding than I've had in the past. So I would say I have a two-part thing because I advocate for vitiligo people, vitiligo awareness, and I also um, I am the one of the more assertive people that challenges the issue and the topic of race concerning vitiligo, and everyone doesn't do that. And so that's one of my superpowers, I guess. It was one of my irritations. And so, because there's things that people act like they're harder than what they really are. And it becomes about power dynamics in certain situations. So there's that. And then on the social side of people who don't have vitiligo, it's it's about educating and giving people the space to have the flaws that they have and letting that be okay. And the irony of both these things is sometimes that means I'm not liked. And I'm like, okay, but what's new about that? So
Yeah.
it's like, what's new about that? But it in making room for us to be as human as we are, um, it gives us the ability to um, embrace nature in ways that we have, I don't want to say lost, but we have definitely stopped. And the what's the word? The sacredness of nature. And so that's what vitiligo really has helped me understand how connected the human body is to nature, to the elements, to the sun, to the cold. Um, and in that, it's like, yeah, we're really on a ball in the middle of nowhere, like spinning around. And I need you to understand how unique that is, how cool that is, and that even for myself, like when things really get bad, it's like go to that universal view and remember you're on a soccer ball in the sky. And so there's a bigger narrative, always there's a bigger narrative taking place than we're giving light to sometimes.
And thank you for this. Thank you for this time. I didn't expect it to be 3.5 hours long.
I didn't
Fighting,
make it.
no, fighting with technology. I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's one thing.